afternoon, or morning, everyone. This is Mark Hamblin here, and today I'm going to be taking you through a new product called WMS Express, which is the free barcoding solution for Business Central. So what we're going to be doing today, quick overview of what WMS Express is, how you're going to work with it, the different hardware options, all those sorts of things. And then we're actually going to jump in and look at the software. And we're going to save the last 10 or 15 minutes here as a Q&A session. If you do have questions as we're going through the session, feel free to enter them in the question box and go to webinar. There's somebody that will answer those questions for you through that chat interface in go to webinar. And anything that can't be answered or is left over, again, we'll have that sort of verbal Q&A session at the end. All right, so what is WMS Express? Well, really, it's really a subset of Warehouse Insight. So if you're familiar with our Warehouse Insight product, full WMS solution for Business Central, WMS Express is really a subset of that. And what it's intended to do is really give access to the key requirements when anybody is looking at a barcoding solution. And those really are the receiving, the picking and shipping, and inventory counts, right? It works with any Business Central Cloud configuration. So this would work with people that don't have bins turned on all the way up to directed pick and put away. It's going to be available, our official release date is June 24th. It may be on AppSource sooner than that. I believe we're submitting this week, so it's likely going to be up there sooner for you to play with, or it might be slightly after the 24th, but really our official release is the 24th. And we're going to have a customer-facing webinar at that time, and it would be nice if you invited your customers to see it if they're interested. Another key thing here, the availability is Business Central Cloud only. This is not going to be made available as an on-premises solution for the next period of time. I don't know if it'll ever be made available on premises. Be Business Central Cloud only. And another quick note on that, because we do actually have a lot of people from Europe on the call, is we're going to go with North America first. So the idea was we were actually going to announce the North American version at Directions, which got pushed out, and the European version will be announced at Directions EMEA in October if it goes. So we're going to give it a few months within North America before we expand it out into Europe. So we get all the North Americans to figure out all the glitches, and then Europe gets a nice clean interface. All right, now, with WMS Express, there's really 3 versions available. I mentioned it works with pretty much any location configuration in Business Central. And so in order to do that, we really have 3 different versions. You can only install one version at a time, which means that, if you install WMS Express, you're going to use it in one of these 3 sort of scenarios. And the standard is for people that, probably a lot of the smaller Business Central environments where you don't have bins turned on, you have purchase orders, sales orders, you want to do inventory counts, things like that. The basic warehouse is where you're using inventory picks and inventory putaways. So sort of one level up, right? It gives you the ability to use those inventory documents to do your warehouse management. And the last one is the warehouse, where this is if you have the warehouse documents turned on, warehouse picks, warehouse receipts, putaways, shipments, those sorts of things. And that can be directed pick and put away, or directed put away and pick, I should say, or just basic warehouse with all of those documents turned on. And so by choosing one of these, you can basically tailor the solution or select the right approach for your specific customer. Now, the other point here is not all locations within Business Central need to be set up the same way. So as an example, I might have a distribution center that's running a few devices, that's running with all the warehouse documents, but maybe I have a retail store or two where obviously they're not going to have bins or anything like that turned on in the store, but they still want to do inventory counts. That's no problem. You can use WMS Express for that. The DC can be set up for warehousing. They can use the scanners there, and in the stores they can do their inventory counts with WMS Express as well with no issue. Okay, but you can only have one version installed at a time. All right, some related applications. So let's say you are in a distribution center and you can do picking and everything else. You might want to incorporate something like dynamic ship. So as an example, you get WMS Express for free, lets you do your receiving, lets you do your picking, everything else. You drop the picked order off at your shipping station, And now they can run dynamic ship, generate your shipping labels, send your tracking emails, add the freight cost to the sales order, all the stuff that the dynamic ship does. And all you're paying for is a dynamic ship piece. So now what you've delivered to your customers is really a full WMS, right? They can do all the stuff through barcoding. They've got the full shipping suite, everything else, and it's costing them a couple $100 a month, right? Because all you're paying for really is a dynamic ship piece. And then if it's a larger environment, much more sophisticated, maybe lot numbers, serial numbers, maybe it's pharmaceuticals or whatever, the advanced inventory count would be a nice tool to add because it lets you do much better cycle counting, tracks lot numbers, serial numbers, all those sorts of things, reconciles by that. Now, again, it's a very small little bump up in cost, and you're delivering a ton of functionality for, very limited cost. These last three here are also very useful. So barcode generator, if the customer needs to generate their own labels with serial numbers and lot numbers or whatever, color labels, whatever you want to do, you can use the barcode generator tool, from AppSource. It's completely free. And the big value on that is the data matrix barcodes that it can generate. The fonts in Business Central now work great if you just want the linear barcodes, but if you want something more complex, you can use this. And now you don't have to buy external software to generate barcode labels. You can do it from within Business Central. And then the print node connector, if you need to do any cloud printing, this is also a free tool. You still need a print node account to use it. But now what this allows us to do is, if I'm on the handheld and I hit the print button on the handheld, I can spit out a label or a packing slip or whatever document I want to print. Okay, so those two are free. And then the last one, Doc Extender here, is also free. It's not really, warehouse management oriented. It's really more of a general purpose tool that gives you document management capabilities within Business Central. So I can drag and drop and attach into Business Central or attach to SharePoint. So the next release, which should be in AppSource this week, I believe it was submitted last week, allows you to drag and drop onto Business Central, and it'll store it in SharePoint or in Business Central. So when you look at a solution like this, I mean, we're not talking about a lot of expensive software, right? If they need dynamic ship, maybe that's about the only thing you need to pay for. And what you're doing is delivering a very compelling, application suite to your prospect. So if you're in there against NetSuite, I mean, NetSuite doesn't have any of that stuff. Screw those guys, right? You're coming in and you've got built-in barcode scanning, you've got shipping integration, you've got document management, you've got cloud printing, you've got label generation, all of that kind of stuff. And it's just part of the Business Central solution, right? It's pretty slick, and you can demo all that. So that gives you a pretty significant advantage in competitive situations, right? If you're up against NetSuite, like I said, or any of the other guys, you've got a lot more functionality that's very compelling that people are going to be interested in. Even if they don't want to use barcoding for a year or whatever, the fact that it's available at no cost within Business Central is pretty compelling. It also gives you the ability to go back to your nav customers. Maybe you've got nav customers, and we see this all the time, that are looking to upgrade to a WMS solution, right? They want barcoding in their environment. Well, they could come and buy our solution and pay a bunch of money, or they could take that money and put that money towards a Business Central upgrade and then get the barcoding for free as part of that upgrade, right? So now it gives you the ability to help upsell your Business Central migrations. And then even existing Business Central customers, maybe they went live a year ago or whatever, and now maybe they're not ready to take the next step and get into barcoding or barcoded inventory counts or whatever it may be. You can go back and you can re-engage with those customers and give them additional value at a very limited cost. So it does help build some of that customer value and retention. So all of these tools, I mean, we're throwing them at you. They're yours to use, and it really does offer, I think, a pretty significant amount of value. All right, enough sales type talk because I don't like sales. All right, so a few usage scenarios that we can cover with WMS Express. I mentioned some of these, but a distribution center, right? This isn't a toy solution. You can use this in a complex environment. You can use warehouse receipts, warehouse putaways, warehouse picks, all of that kind of stuff. That'll work just fine. And like I said, you use the warehouse picks, and then you post the warehouse shipment from Business Central. You use dynamic ship. A store receives that transfer. They can receive it into the store, or they can use it to do physical inventory counts, whatever you like. Or maybe you have a smaller operation where they have a parts room or something like that, and they just want a better method of capturing what they're pulling out of the parts room. They do have bins enabled and they want to do inventory counts and things like that. No problem, we'll support that too. And retail stores or smaller organizations that maybe don't even have bins turned on or anything like that. Or, they want to track serial numbers and lot numbers, but that's too cumbersome to do it on paper. Well, use a barcode and that challenge goes away. And really any industry. So we support any food to pharmaceuticals to consumer packaged goods, retail, doesn't matter. It's a pretty broad application. You can configure it to work in pretty much any environment. All right, so that's really cool. All that stuff is awesome. You want to know exactly how you're going to be able to get it and everything else. But before we go there, let's talk about some of the limitations. So again, each version is limited to the 3 usage scenarios. So really receiving, picking, and or shipping, and inventory count, the standard inventory count from Warehouse Insight. So that's the limitation. It won't do a lot of things, like it won't do license plating and a few other more advanced things we'll talk about in a sec. But it does cover a lot of ground even with that limitation. The other limitation is right now it's a maximum of 5 devices for the company. Now, some of these limitations, we're going to review and address, maybe increase or decrease some of the limitations as we go forward. So your feedback is really helpful on this. The 5 devices, 5 is a nice easy number to choose. Maybe that's too much, maybe it's too little. We don't know, feedback would be helpful on that. But for now, it's going to be 5 devices per company. And you can use them in any location. Again, you could have some in stores, some in the warehouse, whatever you like. Another big one is there's no customization at all. So you can't go in, like in Warehouse Insight, we've got the application builder and all of those sorts of tools. That's not available in WMS Express. You can't subscribe to the events that we provide, like in Warehouse Insight, and customize the behavior on the scanner or any of those sorts of things. So it's an out-of-the-box tool. You install it, and that's what you get. On the limited configuration, there is actually quite a bit of configuration that you can do within the system, but you can't do things like add new menu items or hide or disable menu items and things like that. Again, that interface that you get, it's pretty much like an off-the-shelf software product. You're not going to be able to customize it a whole heck of a lot. And the last one here is important. You can't use it with Warehouse Insight. So you can't buy 1 license of Warehouse Insight or 2 licenses for the warehouse and then install WMS Express to get another 5 free licenses for just the people that are going to be out there doing picking or something like that. So if you install Warehouse Insight, you cannot install WMS Express and vice versa. Okay, so it's one or the other. Either you use the free version or you use the paid version. You can't mix and match those licenses. All right, the website is wmsexpress.com to describe all the limitations and the features. So let's have a quick peek at that because it gives us a much better overview of the system. So this is live now, wmsexpress.com. You can go to it to review it. And I'm just in full screen in the browser here. But it's got a ton of information for end users to learn about the product, some hardware stuff we'll talk about. And the best part of the website is you can fake scan barcodes here. That's a lot of fun. Anyway, you'll spend an hour doing that. But down here is the chart that describes the different capabilities, right? So these are the 3 WMS Express options that we have available with a comparison to Warehouse Insight. So Warehouse Insight, of course, has all the checkboxes turned on. WMS Express has some limited ones. So again, if you install the standard, you're going to be able to receive against purchase orders, ship and pick against sales orders, and do your standard inventory counts, okay? Basic, again, you've got now inventory picks and putaways. Advanced, you've got warehouse receipts, warehouse putaways, and warehouse picks. You'll notice that on the warehouse, you don't have the shipment. You don't have the warehouse shipment capability. So the idea behind that is you'll actually use this to do your warehouse picks. You'll drop it off at packaging, and you'll have to go into Business Central to actually post that warehouse shipment, or you'll buy Dynamic Ship to do that shipping integration for you, where you'll be able to do your rate shopping and all those kinds of stuff, print bills of lading, those sorts of things. Okay, and then a couple of the other key things. Production is missing, that kind of stuff. If you do want the advanced inventory count, which again does a whole bunch more stuff, reconciliation, auditing, those sorts of things, you can add that on to any of these versions. The one thing you can't add on is the license plating. So if you want to do any sort of tote picking or palletization or all those sorts of things, you cannot do that with WMS Express. You need to get Warehouse Insight if you want to do anything with license plate. Okay, so at any rate, this will give you a good overview of what's available within WMS Express and how it compares to Warehouse Insight. Okay, and once it's on AppSource, to get it now, we'll just take you right to AppSource and you can install it and away you go. Okay, so let's go back to slideshow. Next thing, hardware options. So one of the key things in here is we actually do support Windows. And why is that important? Well, again, you might have customers that want to upgrade to Business Central, or they're coming from a competitive, an older ERP, and you're trying to get them onto Business Central. They may already have a scanning solution in place, and it's likely running Windows devices. The fact that they don't have to go and spend a bunch of money on new hardware, again, makes your job way easier because they can just leverage their old hardware. They get free software that runs on it, and they're up and running. It's beautiful. If they do want to buy new hardware, we offer the hardware as well, right? So we can sell the hardware and they can buy it right from the website. I'll show you that in a sec. And the options anywhere from about $600 all the way up to $3,000 if you want for hardware. And you can also run it on your phone if you like, right? So if they just want to try it out and test it out on a phone before they buy hardware, they can do that. But if they do want to buy the hardware, again, anywhere from $600 rugged device all the way up to a $3,000 rugged device, the typical is somewhere in the the $1,600–1,700 range, and that's US pricing, by the way. So you can do that conversion. When they buy the hardware from us, the software will come with it preloaded. All right, so that's not in place now. If you buy hardware today, it won't come preloaded. But by the time we release the software, if they buy the hardware from us, it'll show up and it'll be ready to go. And I'll show you actually what that's going to look like for the end user if they purchase that hardware. So let me actually show you what that hardware stuff looks like. If I go and look at the view hardware options here, it'll take the customer to a site like this. And we've got sort of 4 recommended packages here for the hardware. The cheap one, this one, there's some options. Again, if you just want the device without the charger and all that, these are under $600. Nice little phone style device with or without a pistol grip, reasonably rugged, works great in retail or light warehousing, that type of stuff. Excellent thing. More rugged, that's a 10-foot drop spec. So in a real rugged warehouse environment, you'd want something like that. And this guy here is what I'm actually going to be demoing on today, which is the Memor. This takes a SIM card, so you can use it as a phone or just a warehouse scanner with a pistol grip and all that kind of stuff. So people can come in here, hit buy online. It'll take them right to the web store. They can enter their credit card information. The stuff will get shipped to them and preloaded and ready to go. And then some of the options I mentioned, if you click these options up at the top here, it'll take you down to this grid. It gives you some additional options. So here's another one, $659 without the pistol grip with the charger and everything. And the wireless charging on this stuff is awesome, by the way. But it's under $600 if you don't want the wireless charge dock, and a few different options. So they can actually come in here, make the selection they need, like if they need long range and all that kind of stuff, it's all here, okay? And then they buy the hardware, it shows up, and away they go. So I'll show you what that looks like in a bit. Now, that's the hardware. Let's talk about support. So there's a couple types of support. First of all, sales support for you guys. We're not giving you any. Well, I lie. We're going to provide some recorded demos that you can provide to your customers. So much like what we have on our website today, where we've got all our previously recorded webinars. We'll do some more of those as well. And we might do some more partner readiness webinars, kind of like this one, but a little more in depth from a product perspective. But we're not going to do any customer specific demos. If you phone us up and say, hey, I got a customer that's looking at WMS Express, can you do a demo? It's no, we're not doing it. And if you say, hey, they want Warehouse Insight and we do a demo and they're really a fit for WMS Express, and you knew that ahead of time, well, you'll get away with it, but I'll be sad. So again, we're not going to do any customer facing stuff. This is up to you to be able to demo the product and sell it yourself with some of the tools we provide, like the recorded webinars and all that. The other thing we can do from a sales support perspective is we can provide you a brochure, like a data sheet for WMS Express that has your branding on it. If you're one of our registered resellers, we can set that up. You give us a high quality logo and all that kind of stuff, and we'll send you some data sheets that have those logos on it. And you can use those if you're on premises doing sales calls and you want to provide that stuff. Now on the software side, same thing. It's not the same as Warehouse Insight. It's not a paid product. So you're not going to be able to send a ticket into our support portal and get a direct response. What you're going to do is you're going to go out to our forum or our knowledge base to access that additional help. Okay, so it's a free tool. We're providing you all this value. It's up to you to support it as best you can from an implementation perspective. Now that said, we don't want people getting stuck and saying, oh, that InsightWorks stuff is crap because it doesn't work because the partner or the customer didn't know how to set it up or use it. So if you get into a situation like that, you can contact us to escalate it. We want the customer to be happy, and more importantly, we don't want to look bad because it wasn't done right. So you can contact us in extreme situations. Otherwise, you'd go to the knowledge base or post a question in the forum. Our support personnel will be answering questions in the forum as well. It just might not be within an hour or 2 hours. You might have to wait a day or something like that for a response. Ideally, we'd get answers from partners that are posting answers to other partners or to actual end users. Again, there's a lot of value in this WMS Express. The partners that show up and are seen more as expert partners are probably going to be able to pick up a lot of that implementation work. The last thing that we've got here is the ability to buy a support plan from us. So in the situation where you don't know warehousing, or you don't want to take it on, or whatever, the customer can come to us and they can buy a block of hours from us, right? So it's a block of hours. When they use it up, we're going to bill them on an hourly basis. They can buy that, and then we'll support them during the implementation or whatever it happens to be. Okay. All right. So let's actually have a quick look at that, what that support site looks like. So this is the kb.dmsiworks.com. This is the knowledge base, and that gives us access to the knowledge base, the forum, and the facts. And this knowledge base it's still kind of in draft mode, but there's a lot of good content there. Okay, so all of the products are listed as far as articles and things like that. And WMS Express, all the different versions, standard, basic, warehouse, and warehouse, have all the articles that you need really to understand how the solution works. So if you come in here, it'll give you step-by-step instructions on actually how to use the application and everything else. And that's all available online. You don't need to log in or anything else. If you want to use a community forum to post questions and things like that, you will have to create an account, but that's pretty minor. Okay, so this is where you're going to come for all the documentation and support and everything else. And we do value your feedback. So if you have suggestions on this, or if you want to write your own articles and put them in the forum or whatever, that's awesome. We'd love to see that happen. All right, blah blah blah. Last slide before the demo. A little bit on this. Some contact information. Again, wmsexpress.com is the website. KB is the knowledge base. Some additional links here. WMS for Dynamics for the full warehouse insight. And if you go to App Source and you search for InsightWorks, you'll see all our apps. WMS Express, again, not on App Source yet, should be there by June 24th. Okay. And with that, let's actually jump in and see what this thing looks like. So I'm going to come in here, and I'm going to go into Business Central, and of course it's timed out here. And while I was talking, that's how I can tell I've been talking too much, is when the login times out. So let me just log in here to Business Central, and we're going to do a couple little things here. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to walk you through the install process, right? So I'm actually going to go in and walk you through what it's like to set up Business Central, or sorry, WMS Express inside Business Central. So of course, you're going to go to App Source, you're going to install it, everything else. Once that's done, of course, you're going to come into Assisted Setup. And from there, you're going to run the Setup Wizard. So Setup WMS Express. Come in there, and I've done it once already, so it's just going to say, yeah, I'm going to do it again just to illustrate how this thing works. And it's going to load that Setup Wizard in a sec. And we're just going to accept the terms and conditions. We go to the next. And here's where you choose the option that you're using. So whether we're doing the standard version, the basic warehouse, or the warehouse. If you want to switch between one or the other, I've got the warehouse installed. I could come and rerun this wizard and choose one of these other options. So if you install the wrong one, you can just rerun this and install the appropriate one. And when I hit next, it asks you for some contact info. And here it lets you quickly set up the location. So if I want to come in and choose a specific location that I want to use with the device, this will create the configuration and everything for me automatically. I can use my username and everything else from here to do a test login. You can use device licensing or full user licensing to access this. So I'd come in here, enter my login name, grab the web services key, plug it in there, and away I go. I'd hit next. It'll install the configuration. And when it does that, what it will actually do after it runs through that wizard, what it does is it actually generates a barcode sheet that looks exactly like this. So it'll spit out a report once we're done that gives us a barcode to scan to load the software. So if you're doing this on a phone, I can go into the browser, scan this barcode, and it'll basically install the application on the Android device. Or if you're running Windows Mobile, same thing, it'll install the Windows Mobile. If you've bought software, if you've bought devices that are preloaded, you don't have to do the step one. And all I'd have to do is come into step 2, scan that configuration barcode, and step 3 is actually the user login barcode that's set up. Okay. The other thing you can do, and that, by the way, these are just PDFs that'll print out. It'll also generate a badge for you. So there's a login badge you can use that'll generate, and you can just use this to actually log into the device without having to type username and password each time you do it. So again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, and I've got this barcode sheet printed out, and I'm going to scan that on my device. So what you see here, this is actually a device I have in my hand. So I've got one of those Memoir 10 devices in my hand, and this is what it would look like when it comes, UPS drops it off at your door, you hook it up to the Wi-Fi, this is what it's going to look like. And down here is the actual application. So when I start that application, it comes up and says, hey, you've never set this up, you need to do it. I can do manual configuration, or I can scan that barcode in step 2 here, and that's what I'm about to do. I scan that barcode, it goes in, it goes, okay, yep, I'm configured. Now log in, and now what I'm going to do, instead of typing my username and password, I'm going to scan the login badge, basically this barcode down here, and it's going to log me in to the system. So that's it. From the time I unpack the device and get it on the network, I scan 2 barcodes, and guess what? I'm now on Business Central, and I can start doing my inventory counts, my receiving, my putaways, my picks, everything else. Okay, so this is what it looks like. These are the apps that you get with the advanced warehouse side of things, right? I actually don't have advanced warehousing turned on. I have basic warehousing turned on, but I've got all the warehouse documents turned on. So I'll show you a couple other quick things before we jump in and see what this looks like. But you'll recognize this actually still says Warehouse Insight here. So the first version will still actually say Warehouse Insight, but eventually this will say WMS Express. But these are all the same apps you get in Warehouse Insight. They're exactly the same thing. We just scaled them down to limit the number of apps that you have available. Now, a couple other things on here. I'm going to go into configuration, and I'm going to show you one other thing. So there's a bunch of stuff you set up here, of course, but when we go into barcoding, we have the ability to actually use the camera as well. And if you turn that on, you can choose which symbologies you want to, look at. And now I can actually use the camera for scanning. And the system will actually recognize whether you've loaded the software on a device or on a phone. So if you load it up on a phone, at that place where you scan the configuration barcode, it'll go, oh, I don't think you're on a scanner. Do you want to use the camera? And if you tap that, it'll actually enable this, and you can start using the camera immediately. So it really makes it very easy to come in and set up the system and get it ready for use. You basically scan a couple barcodes, and now I'm in. And I will actually go back into Business Central here real quick and show you a little bit about what that configuration is that it created. So there's a few different things you can set up to control the behavior on the device. Now, if you're used to Warehouse Insight, you notice there's no applications or application overrides or offline applications or anything listed here, or even menus or columns. This is it. This is it for configuration. So it might look a little, scaled down, and it is, but there's actually still a lot you can do, right? So if we come into the device configuration, this is the configuration that was created automatically when we ran the assisted setup. There's still a bunch of stuff you can do, right? There's tons of different options for receiving, for warehousing, all that kind of stuff, auto posting, all of these different things, exactly the same capabilities from a setup perspective as Warehouse Insight, with a few minor differences, like you don't get production and things like that, and those sorts of things. But you've got all the same basic capabilities as Warehouse Insight. So most people probably wouldn't even touch that, right? After you run the assisted setup, it sets it up in sort of a standard way that works pretty well. They'll probably never go into it, but you can if you like. The other thing that people will likely go into, though, are the barcode rules, because this is where you can actually set up the barcode decoding. Now, this is where it gets a little technical, and partners that know what they're doing would be able to come in here and do it. It does set up with some standard rules, but if you have lot numbers and serial numbers in different formats, you'd come in here and set that kind of stuff up. There's an article on the knowledge base on how to do that as well. All right, and then the last thing I will mention just really briefly on the setup is the scan behaviors. Again, this is also part of Warehouse Insight. But what's important here, well, lots of important stuff, but is how we handle the quantities when you scan barcodes. And just as importantly, with Business Central 16, with the ability to over-receive and things like that, you've always had that ability here where you can allow the scanners to just send back the full quantity to Business Central and allow the over-receiving capability within Business Central to take over. Okay, so that's kind of the settings that we have within Business Central for it. Again, all of that was set up by default when I ran the assisted setup, and we've got our application up and running and we're good to go. So that literally took about 45 seconds after I got the device on Wi-Fi to scan the 2 barcodes, and I can now start using. So what does it look like when I start using it? Okay, let's start with receiving. So now I've got warehouse receipts turned on. And when I open this, these don't look like warehouse receipt numbers. These are actually purchase order numbers, and this guy here in the middle is a transfer order number. And that's actually a setting within that device configuration. You can decide to show, the sort of source number, or you can show the actual warehouse receipt. But the system will create a warehouse receipt for you automatically. So if you've got a bunch of POs in the system, I can choose this purchase order, and it'll create a warehouse receipt for me immediately. If you want to see the warehouse receipt number, well, you have that option. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to tap the column header there, and I'm going to hit choose columns, and I can go in there and I can choose additional fields to make visible in that grid. It's same thing as Warehouse Insight. The difference is here, these are the fields you have available, and that's it. You can't go into Business Central like you can with Warehouse Insight and add additional fields. This is what you have to choose from. So if I wanted to see that warehouse receipt number, I could just come in here, make it visible, and when I hit OK, you'll now see that there's my warehouse receipt numbers for this. And if I want to sort by document number instead of warehouse receipt, I can, just tap on that and sort, and away I go. Okay. Now that said, I'm going to come in and I'm going to open this 106033, and I just double tap the screen there, but I could have used the menu on the side to select that. And now I've got my warehouse receipt that I need to receive. You notice the bin field is invisible. I hid that earlier, but if you're receiving against a PO or you've got an inventory put away that you're using, you'd see the bin code field as well, assuming you even have bins turned on, because you don't need bins turned on. And then the way this works is exactly like what you would do in Warehouse Insight. I've got a bunch of stuff that's barcoded from the vendor. I start scanning those barcodes. If I don't have barcodes, I could actually come in here, hit print, and I could print out barcode labels. You have to actually set up the report selections from within Business Central to tell the system what label report to print from a purchase order. But that's just configuration as long as you've got a label. And we include one sample item label, but you might want to configure other labels for your customers. But again, I can go in and I can actually print that label right from here. Now, assuming everything's barcoded, all I'm going to do is grab something out of the pallet or box and scan it. I don't care what it is. I'm just going to scan a barcode. We also have the ability to optionally show the picture, just like in Warehouse Insight, where it can pop up a picture of that item. And you'll notice in this one, I scanned a lot tracked item, and that lot number was in the barcode. So it brings up the lot number here. All that same handling is available in here as Warehouse Insights. So you can put lot number, expiration date, item number, variant code, unit of measure, quantity. Pretty much everything on this field could come out of a barcode if you want. And then some of the other things on here, I can, look at the lot information card if I want to tap that and view the lot information card and, see what's there. I can set the expiration date. If I've got a little calculator, if I want to receive in different units and measure, I can do that. It's all basically the same as Warehouse Insight. And now I can just enter the quantity that I'm receiving for that particular lot number, and that's it. It's updated Business Central, and I'm good to go. So pretty quick. It's usually, by the time the screen refreshes, Business Central is updated and done, and we're off to the races. Now, it is all online. It's live with Business Central. If the network goes out or whatever, unlike Warehouse Insight, you don't have the ability to go offline. It's all online all the time. So you do need a connection to Business Central all the time. But that's it. That's how you do receiving. Exactly the same thing. Scan a barcode, enter quantity, and I'm done. That's it. And then when I'm done, I can have it auto post, or I can manually post here. and it'll post that receipt in Business Central, and I'm good to go. Simple as that. All right. So that's the receiving side of it. On the put away, I won't bother showing you put away, but I will show you pick real quick. Basically exactly the same thing as Warehouse Insight. I can open up my pick ticket. I can scan a barcode on the pick ticket to launch it, open it up. It gives me all, the bins I need to pick from. And just like in Warehouse Insight, I simply scan the bin code that I care about. Let's pick one of these guys here. Scan the bin, scan the item. And we do include the functionality that allows you to disable the bin scanning. If you don't want to force people to scan bins, you can turn that off. So that setting is available on WMS Express as well. And that's it. That's how you run a warehouse pick. If this was a sales order, I may or may not see the bins, or an inventory pick, I'd probably see the bins, but it works exactly the same way. Looks and works the same way. Okay. And then the last thing actually two last things I'll talk about actually. One is this more button here. If people hit that, what it's going to do is it's a little ad for Warehouse Insight, so they can come in and they can contact us or view the website or whatever, but it just tells them, what they're working with. So the last thing I'm going to talk about before we get into questions and things like that is the standard inventory count. So most of you probably don't use this. You're probably using the advanced inventory count because it is such a better tool. But if you're using the standard count, what this is doing is actually populating a physical inventory journal. So we're not using the order, physical order document within Business Central. We're using the physical inventory journal. But that means you can predefine batches. So I could have a number of different batches, and different people could have different batches to count into. And you can predefine those batches. So you can calculate count periods or calculate inventory, list all the items that people need to go out and count. Or you can use it more like a non-directed count where you just go out and scan everything you find. So it works a lot like the advanced inventory count. The big difference between the standard count and the advanced count is we don't deal with lot numbers and serial numbers in the standard count. So that's a big thing. Oh, and if you do have directed put away and pick turned on, standard count won't be sufficient. You will need the advanced count if you have directed put away turned on. At any rate, in standard count, it'll give me a list of the batches on the physical inventory journal. I'll choose the one I want to count on. In this particular case, well, by the way, I should mention, you'll notice it takes a second for that application to load up. It's a lot like sort of the older nav where the first time you load a page, it takes a second to load. So the next time you do it, it'll be pretty much instant to load up, because what it's doing is actually loading the application from the database the first time you open it. At any rate, this one, I've got a couple of lines predefined on the physical inventory journal. And all I would do if I wanted to count those two particular items, again, I walk up, I scan the bin, assuming I have bins enabled, and then I scan the item that I'm counting, and I'm going to do that second one for fun, and I enter the quantity that I counted of that particular item, and that's updated the physical inventory journal with that value. If I count a bin that's not on the physical inventory journal, like I find something else that I want to count, again, it's just bin item quantity, and that's how you do your count. And this is actually populating the physical inventory journal in Business Central. I can go in there, I can run the test report, I can post it, I can do all of that stuff from within Business Central. Okay. So that's basically it. That's how the system works. This, of course, is the warehouse version. The basic and standard version will have one fewer app, so we'll have receiving and shipping, or inventory picks and inventory putaways, and the standard count. The warehouse has receiving and put away versus just receiving. All right, I think that's all I was going to cover off today in the demo, unless there's any other specific questions on that. Let's see, we probably have a lot. Brian, anything in there that I need to specifically address?
Yeah, we've actually got quite a few questions, but I'll group a bunch of them into one, and that's around the 5 device licenses. People are asking about clarification on the 5 devices per location versus within the company, and if it's concurrent users, or just clarifying that it's concurrent users. So maybe you could just comment on that again.
Yeah, so it is. So it's 5 concurrent, right? So those licenses are technically concurrent licenses. So you can have 5 people using the system at any given time. It's 5 per company, right? So it's not per location. I can't have 5 in warehouse 1 and 5 in warehouse 2. I've got 5 across the entire company. But yes, they are technically concurrent right now. They're not named. That doesn't necessarily apply to the Business Central licensing you use, but for WMS Express, it's going to limit you to 5 concurrent people in the system at any given time.
Okay. All right, someone is asking about integrating with the manufacturing piece. I'm not sure if he's referring to our manufacturing piece or Business Central. Would you happen to know?
Yeah, so, and I see a couple other questions here I'll address in the chat window, but there is no production capability within WMS Express. So in Warehouse Insight, you have the ability to do consumption and output and run it on tablets or whatever. You can also run WMS Express on tablets as well. But we don't expose consumption and output to WMS Express. You need Warehouse Insight for that, or better yet, shop floor insight to manage your production requirements. Now, there was a question which, I can understand people might be nervous when I ranted about not giving anybody any support. I want to draw a bit of a hard line in this presentation on that, where we're always there to support you, but it's a free tool. I don't want people firing off a million tickets into a support portal. That's, we're giving you something I think adds significant value. Please don't cost us money to help you make money, or any more money than we've already invested. So one of the questions was, how do we handle, bug reports and things like that? Well, again, you can put those in a form. If you know it's a bug for sure, yeah, feel free, send it to the support portal. We'll log it. We may not fix it. Like with Warehouse Insight, if there's an issue, we can jump in and potentially do a hot fix that same day or very quickly. With WMS Express, that may take a little longer. We may go through the full submission process with AppSource and everything else to fix any issues. So it may take a little longer to reconcile or to correct any bugs or anything like that. But obviously, we are going to maintain it, fix bugs, improve functionalities over time, those sorts of things. Now, the nice thing is, on the handhelds, if there's an actual bug in the application on the handheld, there is an auto update capability within Warehouse Insight, and I believe it's available on WMS Express as well, where if we put out a new application, that'll automatically install the next time you load up Warehouse Insight. So it'll prompt you, hey, there's a new application. It'll run the installer on Android and install it. And the reason that's important is, this isn't available on Google Play yet. That's something that we'll likely add fairly shortly. But the problem is, a lot of people don't want these devices to have external network access, right? They're on an internal network. They don't have external access because they don't want people going on Facebook on this pretty Android device. So if it's on an internal network, it'll automatically download from Business Central. And obviously, they need external access to get to Business Central, but a lot of people do lock that down. So it'll download that application from Business Central and install it on the device itself. And of course, all of these applications here are just stored right within the Business Central database. They're just, the standard Warehouse Insight applications. All right. Any other questions, Brian?
Yeah, there's a lot.
You say that is there's too many to answer in 10 minutes.
I can't keep up, guys. I'm sorry. Mark, can you skim? Can you
I'll
skim
skim
and see?
So I'll zip through a few that haven't been answered here, and hopefully we can cover off a bit. So there was a question on offline mode. No offline in WMS Express. You'd need Warehouse Insight for that. It doesn't work with team member licenses, and the reason is team member licenses in Business Central don't provide the functionality you need to do the things that we're talking about here, like receiving and shipping and inventory counts. A team member can't write to the item journal or physical inventory journal as an example. So no, team members do not work. It has to be a full user license. Essentials is fine, or a device license if it happens to be a shared device. Okay. Can it be integrated into your own apps? So you're asking, can you kind of white label it? Sure, you can brand it any way you like. I mean, when they open it up, it is going to say WMS Express everywhere, and in this case, Warehouse Insight. But yeah, I mean, if you want to bundle it as part of your vertical offering or something like that, I've got no issues. It's a free tool. Go ahead and use it and do whatever you want with it. Again, you can't modify anything in it. You can't modify the heck out of it like you can with Warehouse Insight. If you do have a vertical solution that you need barcode scanning for, get in touch with us and we can talk about white labeling the Warehouse Insight product a little better. So in the More button, it's there's a question is how is it going to direct them to the right partner? Well, it's not. It'll come to us, and if they're signed up as if we know who they're hooked up with from a partner perspective, we'll contact that partner. But generally what we'll do is we'll ask them who their partner is and send them off to the partner to talk about upgrading to Warehouse Insight or anything like that. And on that note, there might be a question in here about how do you upgrade to Warehouse Insight? Well, Warehouse Insight is really a new install. So if people are using WMS Express and want to go to the full version, you're basically going to uninstall WMS Express, install Warehouse Insight, and start from there. If there's any configuration changes, like in the device config or the barcode rules, you would simply export those, install Warehouse Insight, and import those things, or copy and paste them from Excel. Okay, so it's not really an upgrade. You're just going to install Warehouse Insight, copy whatever minor configuration changes you might have made, and you're off to the races. Does the standard count work with Warehouse Physical Inventory Journal? No. So again, if you're using directed put away, you need the advanced inventory count. The standard count only works with the physical inventory journal currently. That's a bit of a lie on-prem where, anyway, it doesn't matter. That's my answer. Okay, if you start on Express, yeah, I answered that question. If you have multiple warehouses with different setups, yeah, you would install the advanced version. So you can have multiple locations with different setups, but again, you can only use these apps across the board, across every location. So if one location doesn't have warehouse receipts on and the other one does, you won't be able to receive in the location that doesn't have warehouse receipts turned on. But you can still do inventory counts and picks and everything else if you have that functionality on that other location. Okay, so the ideal situation, and because as you saw there with the receiving, as an example, you don't even have to even know warehouse receipts are turned on. I choose a PO number and it creates a warehouse receipt for me and launches it, and I can receive. So, you can sort of hide some of that complexity by turning on warehouse receipts, or when you turn on warehouse receipts. So we covered off device licensing. So development options and limitations with Express. So basically there are no development options with Express. You cannot add new menus, you cannot add new columns, you cannot override events coming back from the handheld, you can't add new applications. What you see here is what you get. So an out-of-box solution, and that's it. If you want to be able to customize it, well, and there are some things you can do, right? You can plug in your own reports to print, like if you want to print your own custom labels, things like that, you can do all that. So technically you could cheat because you could hook into the print capability and put a batch report that does a whole bunch of work, and I just blew the whole customization thing out of the water by giving you a way to cheat. But anyway, you could do that. So you can launch reports from the handhelds, and that report technically could be a processing only report, that could be a batch that does a bunch of stuff. So there is a way to cheat a bit. But generally, if you're going to do any customization and development, you need Warehouse Insight. Let's see. Do you need to identify the customer on the support request? So again, if it's a bug or anything like that, all the information that you have would help. If it's not a bug, please don't submit a support request. Use the knowledge base or the community forum, and we'll do our best to answer that forum request. If the customer does need support, like you're running into issues and things like that, we can sell that support pack where we'll sell them 10 hours up front. So that's kind of where we're starting at, is a 10-hour block of time, and then we'll support them for those 10 hours. And after that, we'll bill on an hourly basis, a time and materials basis, like we do otherwise. Yes, and can you order hardware with the full Warehouse Insights preloaded as well? Yes. So it's the same application. If you order hardware for Warehouse Insight, it'll come exactly the same way. And the Warehouse Insights, both on-prem and Business Central, it's the same approach. It'll generate those two barcodes you scan, the one configuration barcode that'll configure everything, and you scan another one to log in. And it's exactly the same for Warehouse Insight as what I've shown you in WMS Express here. No iOS. So there's another question, no iOS, at least for now. We may look at it in the future, but from a warehouse device perspective, everything is either Windows, which is largely going away, or Android. So Android is really the winner in the warehouse space. If you want a device, a rugged device, it's largely going to be an Android device. Okay, so that's why it's Android support primarily. So there's a question on item tracking and counting. So the standard count does not capture lot numbers or serial numbers. I can scan a lot number or a serial number, it'll identify that item, and it'll put it on the physical inventory journal, but it's not going to store the lot number or serial number anywhere. Okay, and there's lots of reasons for that, but we can't just add it to the item tracking lines on the physical inventory journal because that just won't work at all. But there's no lot numbers or serial numbers with the standard count. If you need that, you go with the advanced count. And you know what? That advanced count is going to pay for itself the first time they use it anyway. It's cheap enough that it should not be a barrier to actually move up to the advanced count and get all that better functionality with it. When will the European version be available? So our goal is in the October timeframe. It'll support all the same languages that we support in the full Warehouse Insight product. And I think there's about 30 variations, I think, you know, a little more than a dozen sort of core languages, French, Spanish, German, English, those sorts of things. A couple questions on languages. Yeah, so there's a question where I said you couldn't do a warehouse receipt in locations that don't have warehouse receipts turned on. That's only the case if you have the warehouse version installed, right? So if we go back and we look at, you know, those versions that are available, if I have this version enabled, the warehouse version enabled in my database, I will not be able to receive against a purchase order. I can only receive against a warehouse receipt. If I'm not using warehouse receipts, I would install either the basic warehouse or the standard to be able to receive against purchase orders. So in the case of basic warehouse, I'd use an inventory put away to do my receiving. Okay, so you can receive against purchase orders, but not if you have this version installed. Is it a Java-based script app? Nope. So the app on the handheld is an actual compiled app, but all the individual modules here that you see loaded are actually built within the application builder from Warehouse Insight and stored within Business Central. So each of these applications is actually stored in Business Central and loaded from Business Central, you know, when you first enter the application. Okay. And again, if you want to extend these applications or build your own applications or do whatever you like, you'd get Warehouse Insight because that gives you full control over all the source code and everything else within it. All right, so I'm sure I missed a few questions there. Let me see what else I can cover. Good question. Somebody that's clearly used Warehouse Insight before. Does it allow you to change which columns are visible is basically the question. And no, the only way you can change which columns are visible is right from within the application itself. So again, if I come in here and I want to see, you know, I'm in a receipt here, I can come in here and tap this and say choose columns. These fields, there's quite a few there. I can make any of these visible that I like. But if I want to add something, maybe there's a custom field for priority or something like that, I cannot do that in WMS Express. I'm limited to the fields that are available in this view here. Okay. And Warehouse Insight, of course, I can come in here and add whatever additional fields I want to make visible on the device. But in Express, I'm limited to the standard columns. Let's see. Yeah, covered that. Sorry, I apologize. I'm busy reading questions and I can talk to myself in the background while you guys are listening. All right, Brian, anything else that's important that I may have missed while I'm reading through this?
No, no, I don't think so. I've been answering a lot of questions, so I can't always remember when you answered them verbally. But no, I'm just looking myself. I think you've got it.
You lie. There's another question here that I could actually answer. And of course, you can tell again, I've been talking way too long because it's timed me out. Let's get back in here. So there is a question on, I mentioned, you know, you can choose, set the usage for the reports that print. And then I, you give everybody a cheat code for doing that, for running actual applications. But there's the report selection here. So you'd actually come into report selection, and there's more in this report selection than what's actually available in WMS Express. So for example, you can't print license plate labels from WMS Express, but the things that you can print, you can come in here and specify one or more reports that print from these different applications. So in the case of warehouse receipt, I can come in there and I can have it print, a report, or I could have it print a label instead of a report. So if I do this, it's going to print on the regular printer that's defined for this device. And again, with print node, it can be any printer you like, can send it anywhere you want, but the type of printer is actually defined on the device config. And then you can decide to use the receipt line that I'm on, or it's just going to pass in the receipt header and a few other things you can set. There's some custom stuff you can do here to control that printing, but it's going to run this report, print it out, and away I go. And again, if this happens to be a processing only report, you could run some additional business logic behind the scenes or whatever you wanted. Okay. All right. I mentioned no offline mode, no team member. It's not compatible with nav or anything else. It's Business Central Cloud only. So again, only available on AppSource. There's a chance we'll make it available on-prem, but unlikely. You'll notice that a lot of our stuff now is going cloud first and then moving to on-prem later, or not moving to on-prem at all. So as an example, Doc Extender, we have Nav Extender for on-prem. The Doc Extender right now is cloud only. The print node connector for the time being is going to be cloud only. Even the enhanced planning worksheet and the scheduler are likely going to be cloud only for the foreseeable future, right? So we really are pushing more toward the cloud than the on-prem side of things. And then with WMS Express, do we support lot numbers and serial numbers? Yes. So that example I did when I went in to the receipt, actually it was this guy here that I scanned. You can see I've entered 12 and I've got 10 left. If I double tap it, or if I hit this change quantity from the menu here, you can see that here's the lot number that I've scanned in, and I could scan in any number of lot numbers to receipt. So lot numbers and serial numbers are fully supported throughout the system, okay? Other than the standard inventory count, which I've covered before.
Hey, Mark, while you're reading through any of those questions, if anybody does have questions or think of it later, I put Melanie's email address in the chat box. You could always email Melanie at mwood@dmsiworks.com. There's a lot of questions that are repeated, and so we're not going to answer those again in case you did miss the explanation the first time. We may not answer it again here, so you may want to email Melanie and she can help you.
Yeah, and then there was a question on how do you print shipping and packing labels. Well, again, from the handheld, you can hit a button and it can print whatever report you like. But really what we want to do is push you towards using dynamic ship if you need those carrier-specific shipping labels, because we'll do the rate shopping, we'll print the carrier labels, we'll print a bill of lading, all that kind of stuff. You don't need the full version of Warehouse Insight to be able to use dynamic ship, right? So the idea is on the handheld, I do all my picking from the handheld device. Let me back up a sec here. From the handheld device, I do all my picking, I drop it off, and then I go into Business Central and I use the package worksheet in Dynamic Ship to actually package it up, get my labels and everything else. Okay. All right. Oh, good question. How did I get the handheld to display and go to webinar? We actually do get that question quite a bit because partners want to demo it themselves. And maybe you, by the way, if you want a device for demoing yourself, you can contact us. We'll give you, you get a discount on the hardware if it's sort of not for resale, if it's your own demo unit. We can sell you a Memor 10 like this, or the Memor 1 for doing demos. So you have a nice actual scanner in your hand that you can use. We'll give you a discount on that so that you have the tools you need. And then what I use to display it, I'm actually using a product called Visor, but there's also free tools available. We can give you that. There's one called Screen Copy, SCRCPY, that it's completely free. You plug it in and it's pretty easy to use. So, and you can use GoToMeeting, Teams, Join Me, TeamViewer, Zoom, all of those guys. You run it on an Android device and you can actually share the screen from the Android device. Okay. All right. let's see, I think I probably missed some questions, but I think that pretty much covers it. And we're right at the end of the allotted time. So as Brian said, feel free to contact us if you have any additional questions on that. And with that, hopefully you guys found this useful and interesting. And I hope you have a great rest of the week. All right, thanks everyone.
Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel for more great content.